Okay.
All right, let's call this meeting to order on Tuesday, April 5th, 2022, 6 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's take the roll. And James Blair, Councilmember James Blair said he's going to be 30 minutes late approximately.
Councilmember Richardson,
I am here.
Councilmember Crossman,
I'm here.
Councilmember Smith, here. Councilmember Hess,
Yeah.
Councilmember Roy, here. Councilmember Kaminsky, here. Mayor DePinto.
I'm also here. All right, item number 3, discussion items. If it's all right with council, we're going to go ahead and switch the Arts Commission presentation because Annette's here in attendance for the first 2 items, if that's all right. Great. Well, with that, we have an Arts Commission presentation from the Washington State's Arts Commission Community Development Manager, Annette Roth.
Thank you so much, Mayor. I appreciate it. Well, hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here tonight. I'm excited to talk to you about our Creative Districts program. I have recently learned that the city of Yelm is interested in certification. And so I'm going to give you a basic overview of our program, sort of how it works, how we can help support communities as they go through the process. And then if there's time for questions, I suppose I could take some questions. My presentation will probably be around 20 minutes, if that's okay. Okay, perfect. Next slide, please. Oh, all right, great. So before we begin, I just want to give you a little bit of an understanding of what we consider the underpinning of a good and healthy local economy. So in a sustainable community, environmental, social, and economic concerns are all part of the equation, and they all balance each other out. They all influence each other and are influenced by each other. And at the Arts Commission, we believe that arts and culture and the creative economy sit at the center of that. Arts influences the economy in a very big way, which we'll talk a little bit about. It influences the environment and is influenced by the local environment. Obviously, people are the ones that make art and culture. And so when we think about a creative district, we think about it like this. It's sort of the center of a community and a sustainable economy. The next slide, please. About the program history, legislation was introduced for this program in early 2017 with broad bipartisan support. Governor Inslee signed it into law in May of 2017. I was brought on board to actually launch and start the program, and the program began in January of 2018. That's when we started working with communities. Our first district was certified in December of 2018. We are up to 11 now. I have a map. I'll show you all the communities that we've been working with across the state. And on this PowerPoint, which I believe you have, and so if you want to send it out to everybody, you can. Those are the RCW, the Revised Code of Washington, and the Washington Administrative Code rules that govern our program. So if you want to read legislative stuff, go for it. Riveting, riveting. Next slide, please. So what is a creative district? A creative district to us is primarily an economic development tool. It uses arts and culture and the creative economy to help grow and sustain a local community. Creative districts are right-sized geographic areas. All of the creative districts are different in Washington state. They're all sized so that they make sense for the community. And that's one of the part of the discovery process is to figure out what that looks like. It's very much, like I said, a vehicle for jobs and economic opportunities. And we think of creative districts as a focal point for a community. So when you have visitors that are coming or people that live in the community are going to come, sort of into the town, that's where they want to go. That's where all the cool stuff is happening. That's sort of the place where everybody gathers. We definitely think of this as a tool for a community to promote its unique assets. Every community in Washington state is different from each other, and the process is designed for a community to figure out how it is that you're unique and how you're special, and what is it that you have that no one else has, and how can you share with that. We have a broad definition of what creative is at the Arts Commission. So we look at the creative sector in a very holistic manner. It includes arts and culture, right? So traditional things like fine art and performance art, dance, and that sort of thing. But we also think of creative as things like a graphic design, web development, architecture, landscape development, craft brewing and distilling. So it's a really broad category that encompasses a lot of things. And so when a community is thinking about who are we in that creative way, we really encourage them to think about that in a really broad manner. Next slide, please. There are a number of community benefits that come from becoming a creative district. The first one is it is a state certification. So it's kind of like a stamp of approval, if you will, of the cool stuff that's happening within a community. And what that does is it opens up a lot of opportunities for communities to create partnerships, within the community itself, but with other community organizations, with other statewide organizations. And it also opens up opportunities for larger grants, particularly in the national level and from large philanthropic organizations like Bloomberg Philanthropy, for example. So oftentimes when a community is looking for a big grant, like an Our Town grant from the National Endowment for the Arts, they have a lot of requirements that talk about what's the there. What are the things that you're doing? How is the community working together? What kind of processes do you have in place in order to do creative placemaking work? And the process that you go through to get creative district certification very much mirrors a lot of those things. So a lot of that information is a part of the discovery process, and you can use that to just put into those kinds of applications. We think of this very much as a tool for growing entrepreneurship. Creatives very often are small business owners. Artists are small business owners. Whether or not they think they are, they definitely are. Sometimes artists don't think of themselves as small business owners, but web developers do, right? And web development is a thing that anybody with an internet connection can do web development anywhere. So we want to make sure that folks have an opportunity to grow small businesses if they choose to. Part of the legislation, the language in the legislation is surrounding redevelopment opportunities and things like maker spaces, affordable housing for artists. And so we're working with districts to figure out sort of what that looks like and how we can provide additional support with that. And we think of the creative district primarily as a way to strengthen a community's future, right? So I used to live in Yelm some years ago, lived out here in Yelm and in Rainier for about 10 years total. And so I saw population explode, right? And it's still exploding. It seems like every time I come out here, there's like new stuff and more things that are going on. And so your community is changing, right? And so you've probably been thinking, who are we? Where are we going to go? Where are we going to be in 10, 15, 20 years from now? And this is an opportunity for the community to collectively decide, what is it that we're all about? How are we going to look at arts and culture? How are we going to use that to develop the future of what this community is going to be? Next slide, please. Our program is a planning, certification, and application process. So it is customized to each community. And when I say that, what I mean is that each community looks different. And so each community is going to come to the process a little bit differently. They're going to go through the process a little bit differently. We have a universal set of criteria that all districts have to meet, but it's based on what they have within their community, right? So like the creative district that's in Tenino is very different than the creative district that's in Olympia, but they both had to meet the same criteria, right? It's just solely based on what's happening in their community. And we work with communities on a very individualized basis. Some communities need a lot of support, right? They might not have a lot of resources, or they might not have economic development folks in the community to help them out. And so we can be there to help provide strategic planning support, to help do facilitation if they need, or if communities have it, they've got it together, then they don't necessarily need their support. We're there to just answer questions as they need them to. And so the process is designed to foster really authentic community engagement that's based on the values of a community and based on who is in the community and the diversity within that community. Next slide, please. So this map is all of the communities that we're working with in various stages. It's color coded, so I'll explain it to you a little bit. So the communities that have red dots are certified creative districts, and there are currently 11 of them. Port Townsend, Edmonds, Rainier Valley, which is a neighborhood in Seattle, Bainbridge Island, Issaquah, Olympia, Tenino, Twist, and Chewelah. Moses Lake has recently joined us as in the pre-certification stage. They're almost through the process. We actually received their application and it was approved by a panel, but now it needs to go to our Board of Commissioners for ratification, which should happen within the next 2 weeks. And then last week, actually, hearing and submitted their letter of intent for application. So, you know, assuming that they both get certified, we should have 13 districts by the summertime. I have worked with probably 25 districts all across the state of Washington in various configurations. And so I've been to every single one of these towns at least once, some of them 2 or 3 or 5 times. And it's amazing to see the differences in arts and culture and creativity that exist around the community. I think where we particularly are located here is really special. There are already 2 creative districts here in Thurston County, right? Olympia and Tenino, and you're looking at it. The Nisqually Tribe has been looking at creative district certification, Aberdeen, Montesano, and Centralia. So there's a big concentration of creativity and lots of opportunities for cross-pollination and partnership with your local communities. Next slide, please. We, like I mentioned before, provide a lot of resources and guidance for communities as they go through the process. The application process is transparent and equitable. You can actually find all of the application guidelines on our website with the questions in it. We want communities to know what it is they're getting into before they get into it, right? Process isn't necessarily difficult, but it does take time, right? And it is sort of an intentional process. We have a lot of networking opportunities. So we bring the creative districts together at least once a year for an annual convening. It's more often than that, honestly, though. We have a rural cohort that we convene every other month for our smaller and more rural districts for them to get customized support. They asked for it, and so that's what we're doing for them. That's part of the ongoing technical assistance that we provide to them. We offer grants. We have 2 grants available currently to creative districts. One of them is a startup grant for $7,000 to help the district start and begin their activities. And then districts are also eligible for a $40,000 small scale capital projects grant. So, and this is projects in the built environment, could be murals, it could be like Tenino has a kiosk. The new project that they're working on is going to be customized signage that's designed by a local artist. Some of the other ones that we've seen are sculptures, art markers, wayfinding signage, those kinds of things, right? So for the benefit of the district and a way to sort of let people know that it's there. We also have a partnership with WashDOT to provide highway signage for creative districts. So the Department of Transportation will underwrite 75% of the cost and installation of signs that are branded throughout the state on either the freeway or state highways, and the districts cover the other additional cost. So we have a lot of opportunities available for districts and a lot of training and support that we provide to them, not just in the beginning when they're doing their planning, but also throughout the entirety of their certification, which lasts for 5 years. Next slide, please. Great. So when we talk about how are districts that are successful, how are they successful? You know, obviously all of them have a clearly defined arts and culture identity. That's really important, right? Because it's all about creativity in the creative sector. But really, what really comes down to is if you have broad community support and strong organizational partnerships, that's the thing that makes or breaks a district from actually happening, right? So if community members and parts, you know, people who are on the steering committee don't work well together, they don't do a good job of you know, interfacing with the public and bringing public engagement process to the whole part of this. If they're not good at being low ego, right? So it's not about an individual person, but it's about growing the community. It can become challenging, right? Because it's a community development process, and so it requires collective thinking. Having the city be supportive of or cooperating with the application process is required. That doesn't mean that the city needs to hold the designation necessarily, but obviously if there's going to be built environment projects happening, the city needs to be on board to a certain degree, right? And we also like to see that a community has a solid plan for how they're going to use arts and culture or the creative sector within their community to move things forward. That doesn't mean that it has to be set in stone. We know that things are going to change. Honestly, we had 5 districts that were certified between March and May of 2020. None of them had the first year plans played out the way that they thought they were going to, which is okay, right? They were able to make other things happen instead. And so we know that sometimes the world does crazy things that we don't anticipate. And so we're able and willing to let people flex as they need to. Next slide, please. So really quickly, the 4 steps to becoming a creative district are this: gather. So that's kind of where you are right now. I've had conversations with the Young Arts Commission, with Steve and some other folks, and sort of thinking about, is this a viable opportunity for us? If so, who do we need to bring to the table, right? And then it becomes a critical mass, and then you start working on the planning, right? Working on your team to plan the district, public engagement, all of those kinds of things. The amount of time that takes is varied depending on the community. Some communities have done it in 4 or 5 months, but Burien took 3 years, but that was their process. And so we want communities to come to the table when they're ready. We're not pushing them, we don't have, we take open applications. So whenever a community is ready to apply, they can, because we want it to be right for them. Once they are ready to do that, they can go ahead and write and submit their formal application. And then we run through a panel process that once it gets approved by the panel, it goes to our board of commissioners for ratification. And then once that happens, the community can start to implement their plan, enter into grant contracts with us, start working on their capital projects and that sort of thing. Next slide, please. So quickly, strategies for success are bringing stakeholders together, right? Starting that process, finding partners. Who's going to be involved in this? What does that look like? Who should be at the table? And we recommend business groups, artists and creatives, the city, the school district, local community colleges. If you have sort of institutional, large employers, for example, or the golf course could be a partner, for example, all of those kinds of things. All of those people are part of the community and need to be involved in it, right? Then you start by defining what your community values are, discovering your community assets. And once you start doing that, then you're able to think about, what do we want? What do we want for the future? What do we need? What's missing here? And how are we going to get there, right? And so that's basically the process in a nutshell. Next slide, please. I am ready to take questions if anyone has any. Yes.
Sorry, guys, I have to ask this question. You're talking about community involvement and support. By what means do you get that? How do you ask the community, and how does that work? Just because we've done this before.
Great. Well, so it looks a little bit different, honestly, in each community, but a lot of times it starts by having those conversations, by bringing people together, by putting the word out there that this is something that folks are wanting to do. A lot of our communities utilize the press and local, newspapers and that sort of thing to get the word out there. They reach out to folks. I've seen people, they do tabling events at like the farmer's market, or in Issaquah, they put up those, those 3-panel boards, the science boards that kids use. Oh, thank you. They put that up there, said, we want to be a creative district. What do you think, what should we focus on? And literally people who came to the library put sticky notes on the thing, and they gathered them all up, 700 responses in the course of 6 weeks. And they were able to take a look at what it was that people in the community wanted to do. The interesting thing was the largest piece of feedback that they got was from like teenagers and kids. And that wasn't even part of their process before that, because they didn't even think about them. And so it really made them realize, like, oh, these are the people that this creative district is going to be for in 20 years from now. So we need to take.
So you just kind of average out the votes?
Well, it's not votes. I mean, it's community development. So it's gathering that input and then synthesizing it into an actionable plan. We have a community readiness workbook that Steve gave to me. It's actually on our website, and it's kind of a planning guide that communities can use. There's all kinds of activities in here, thinking about who some of your target markets are, what kind of connection you've had with the community, an asset map. So thinking about what are the assets, maybe doing a SWOT or a SOAR analysis might be something that you could do. Your community identity, what are adjectives that describe who you are, right? And getting that feedback and putting it out there. It's an iterative process.
And I just asked because we had a situation where we asked for opinions, but we only found the negative opinions, and we canceled out something that we were maybe thinking of doing. So not everybody's going to agree, and we're not going to do the same thing across the board, but there's room for all types of everything.
Sure, absolutely. And that's where the notion of community values comes into play, right? Because when the going gets tough, if you have a collective set of values that everybody sort of agrees upon, that this is what this community is about, this is why I'm here, this is why I live here, this is, you all have your reasons for living here. And I bet if you had a discussion about it, you would find more commonalities than not, right? And so those are the things that you start from. And because when the going gets tough, you can say, you know what, does this pass this filter test of, are these our community values? And if they're not, then maybe we should put this aside or set it down for a moment and focus on the things that we can control, right? So it's kind of a democratic process.
I really enjoy the synopsis of everything, and plus the one word that really stuck out to me was broad. You know, when it comes to arts, it should be a wide range of things, and I love that. One thing you said I was really curious about, it was I don't know if it was a phrase or if I heard wrong, but you mentioned creative placemaking work. Could you elaborate on that? Because I think were you relating that to the employment and businesses and creative place, like, so is that where you're going?
Yeah.
Makerspace.
Yeah, so it could be makerspace. So creative placemaking is using arts and culture to kind of create a space for people to come to. And that looks different in every community.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Brian and then Josh. Sorry, you got to stand up first. Or you got it up higher at any rate.
I noticed that when we talk about it's a district and having looked at the various things, each one seems to be different sizes. How is it that we define the size that we're going to say this is the creative district? And can there be, if geography of the community that's putting together, if there happens to be something else that's not necessarily in that, but meets it, can it be kind of like annexed in, but not necessarily touching it?
That's a great question. So obviously, if you looked at the different creative districts and they have different maps, they're all over the place and they look like weird tentacled monsters, and they're not, it's not square or rectangular by any stretch. And a lot of that is determined by, you know, where are the activities happening, right, in the community. You know, there's a certain amount of accessibility and walkability that needs to be part of the district, although that's not the sole criteria. For example, in Rainier Valley, which is in southeast Seattle, their creative district is 3 miles long, but it's really narrow. It only follows Rainier Ave, basically from Columbia City down to Rainier Beach, if you're familiar with Seattle. It doesn't cover the rest of the neighborhoods, right? It's like maybe a block or two on either side. It makes sense for them because it's an urban district. That's where the concentration of arts and culture type things are. Because it's a city, people come to that area. In other communities, it looks a little bit different. So for example, in Olympia, it is not their entire downtown, but a portion of it. So it's kind of the area of Olympia where Washington Center is, down 4th Avenue a little bit, up, not entirely up towards the Hands-on Children's Museum, but that kind of area where there's some of the warehouses and that sort of thing, because they wanted to concentrate on where the arts and culture stuff was happening, but also a part that could be developed for the future, right? So yeah, so it kind of depends, right? And then so Josh and then Joe.
Oh, and then Holly.
And then Holly, okay. Somebody's keeping track of this. If I get it out of order, then I apologize.
Couple questions.
Okay.
Is there a cost to the city?
There is no cost to the city to apply or to anything
to
like
be
that.
Part of this program,
No, but there are match requirements for the grant.
match requirements
Yeah.
for the grant.
Yeah, so when you get the grants, there's a certain amount of match that you have to bring to the table. Our legislature likes it when people do that, so that's something we do for our,
That's a point to know.
right, but you
The
know.
grants, the taxpayer funded grants?
Yeah, so it's part of the operating, so the operating grants, the startup grants are from the operating budget, and capital projects are from the capital budget. So those are through bonds.
We don't have to apply for those grants, do we?
You're automatically eligible for them. Yeah. I mean, if you want to leave money on the table, you're more than welcome to do that, but you know, we haven't had any community who hasn't been able to come up with a match. And we have match reduction programs for both grants for rural and under-resourced communities. So you don't have to bring the full amount to the table. So for the operating grant, communities are allowed to bring half cash and half in kind to the match. And then for the capital grant, we have a stepped down match reduction based on the median household income in the community relative to the state household income. So just to let you know, of the 11 districts, of the 8 districts last year, that we did this with the pilot project, I think 5 of them were eligible. The only ones that weren't were Edmonds, Issaquah, and Olympia, because they're too big and they're not under-resourced communities. But so probably the chances are good that you would be eligible for the reductions.
And then, different point altogether. One of your points was grow entrepreneurship, which gets me perked up because I'm big on that. Is there any, so that's mainly just helping out with local artists, growing their business, is that,
The artists
And
and
what it-
creatives,
like, how's it growing? You know, how's it going entrepreneurships? How are we creating business through this? Is it mainly just, that's the main avenue that entrepreneurship's going through, that, you know, artist
I mean, the focus
side of things?
is on that, but it does have a spillover effect into other, so when you go to a place that's cool and there's like lots of artists and creatives, what starts happening? Bars start popping up,
Yeah.
so other stores and those kinds of things start popping up. So there's an entrepreneurial aspect that is not directly related to the creative economy that can be part of it. One of the really cool things that's going on is that the Department of Commerce is now paying a lot of attention to the creative economy, and they're starting to provide some entrepreneurial resources for creatives. Like they have a Creatives Academy, so it's they do a lot of training modules for small businesses and that sort of thing. So they have that. They're looking at, having a sector lead to focus on the creative economy, so that there can be more of a collective effort across the state to provide support for the creative sector. It's cool. I mean, yeah, definitely. Joseph.
Yeah, I see the core motive behind this being inspiration. I love that. And I guess with that really comes a representation, before we can be inspired, really comes a representation of identity and our values as a city. And so could you probably, I don't know, explain the process of how we would filter? Because the thing is, one person could say one thing about, well, I think Yelm is this, I think Yelm is that. But then to really have a broad spectrum of different people, so we can find some value, find some identity in that. And really, because I really think the being in the center of the economic and the social is that inspiring aspect of this is what arts are for.
Exactly. And, and one of the great things about arts and culture is that it's not political. It doesn't have to be political, I should say, right? Because all of us experience arts and culture every single day. If you watch TV, you're watching arts and culture. If you listen to music, if you have art in your house, if you're a crafter, I mean, all of those things that we all do, if you make stuff, right? If you do, woodworking is a creative endeavor. And so when you look at it from that perspective, it's something that all of us kind of need in order to be fully human to a certain degree. And so it's like coming to that place. It can be challenging when you have a really broad and disparate groups of people within a community, as Yelm does, right? There's very distinct groups of people here, but there's commonalities among them. They all live here for some reason, right? And so why is that? And what are those things? And how can you look at arts and culture? I mean, you think about the summer fair. Everybody comes to the summer fair. It doesn't matter who you are. If you're around here, you come to it, right? And so that's a common thing. And so finding those commonalities, and it can take time, right? It does take time. That's where the community engagement process comes in. That's where engaging kids comes in. I mean, if you want to hear some good ideas and unfiltered truth, ask an 8-year-old boy, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, no, that's a great point. Absolutely. And then Holly, you have a question?
Just a quick comment in that regard. If you look at the ordinance establishing the Arts Commission, one of the duties is to develop standards. And you're right, that has potential of being very controversial, but I agree with Annette, it doesn't have to be. And so we're hoping to initiate that conversation, not just on the commission itself, but with the community. And so that we have the fingerprints of the entire community on those standards. And there may be some people who aren't totally happy with certain aspects, but hopefully we can achieve some kind of a consensus.
Commonality.
Yeah, 80%. If you get to 80, I mean, think about this. If you got 80% of everything you ever wanted in your life, you have a pretty good life, right? So that's kind of what we say about the 20% on either side. Like, forget about that. Just focus on the stuff that most people can agree upon. Holly, you had a question.
Any final questions here?
I had one.
Okay.
I'm sorry. You asked one of them, the cost, but the other one, and kind of like Joseph, I thought you said something and I may have misheard, but you said something about affordable housing for artists. Can you
Yes.
elaborate on that?
That was written into the legislation. It's obviously challenging as housing is everywhere in Washington state. That's something that we have been working on a little bit. We had a pilot project that we did with Art Space, which is a nonprofit development corporation in Minneapolis. They do these kinds of collective housing things, co-working spaces, all of that all across the country to see how that can work for individual communities. It isn't just necessarily affordable housing for artists, but it could be studio space. It could be maker space. It could be, like a common community center, something that's going to be for the benefit of artists and creatives so that they are able to survive and create their art and thrive within the community. It's going to look different for every place,
You help, I guess, is financially, are they help?
We don't help financially yet. That's something that we're looking at. The housing challenges in Washington state are just astronomical. And, so how we get there is a good question. And so for us, a lot of it is what's the feedback that we're hearing from the creative districts? What do they need? And when we know what it is that they need, we know what kinds of requests, budget requests and decision packages we can put before the legislature to help make these things happen. Great question.
Last question.
And it goes back to the cost investment, however you want to put it. I usually, when I look at what municipalities put in, I wish there was another term other than investment, because everybody hears the term investment, oh, what are we getting back? And I always look at it, it's not just money, sometimes it's quality of life, quality of something that has come back out of it. With the ones that you have already, the creative districts, when the community invests into that, whether it be in kind with grants and they have to put forth taxpayers' money, are you seeing overall that it helps increase everything as a whole? In other words, they get somehow everything back. Has that been?
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of it is that they get more interest and more investment into their communities, right? So they'll create something. So a lot of it is the quality of life thing. So for example, when we did the original capital projects, that was a pilot, a lot of the districts just did things like murals or wayfinding signage, or smart markers so that people could see that this was happening. And they unveiled them last summer after that big, before we had the crazy stuff that happened in the wintertime, but last year when everyone's like, oh, good, COVID's over. And so it was a way for people to come out and to see the things that were happening in their community. And a lot of the communities have been able to see new things happen, new investment happening, new businesses that are being opened, more creative businesses that are coming into their communities, right? And which has been really great. I know, for example, they started a number of things, like they have the artist market and some of the other pieces that have come on as a result of them becoming a creative district, So yeah, that's a great question.
Well, thank you so much. And if there's any further questions, we can have them emailed out. But thank you.
Great. Thank you all so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Steve, do you have a comment?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I do. I'm going to frame it as a question.
Sure.
The Arts Commission has taken the initiative on this. And I guess it's the commission's assumption that the Arts Commission will take the lead on this effort. So my question is to the mayor and to the council, is that a correct assumption?
Yeah.
I mean, we're anxious to take it on, if you support that.
Yeah, no, I think we're finally moving forward with it. Of course, there's any decisions that need to make further down, especially monetary ones, that council will be involved in. But yeah, please take the lead on this.
And
And
I can assure you, this will be a hand in glove effort. Obviously, this is going to go way beyond the council and the mayor in terms of involvement, and we're committed to that.
yeah, it's going to be a good community effort. Looking forward to seeing the results and working with the Arts Commission on this. So thank you, Steve, for the clarification. Thank you. All righty, moving on. Plot process. Cody, would you like to give us some introductions on the process and what we need to know and all that?
Yeah, so good evening, council. As you know, over the last couple of months, we've had a couple of plats come before you, and there was questions about why are we reviewing these? Why do we need to approve these? What's going on? So I'm just going to break down the process for you, and I'll send you guys some slides afterwards so you can see those. The biggest thing for us is to make sure there's no confusion on what everybody's responsibility is and what roles are, and where the biggest thing I think is where legally the city can be held and liable for something or issues that arise. We don't want that to happen. So when a property or someone comes in to try to develop a property, they must pass through a subdivision review process. This is split into two parts, a preliminary subdivision and a final subdivision. So the first one is a preliminary. That's what staff reviews. That's what you hired staff for. That's what staff's on board for. They review the application for compliance with all of our codes. So the code is how you guide staff and what we review a subdivision for. So we'll review for health, safety and welfare, conformity and zoning regulations. So if it's a C2, we make sure it complies with that C2 zoning regulation. C1, it complies with that. And then adequate public facilities. So making sure that there's infrastructure to provide. So if someone had a plat that was out in the middle of a landlocked area and there's no utilities there, and they go, I want to build a development here, and we would review it and go, you can't because you have no utilities there. How are you going to get utilities there? So those are the kind of things that staff looks for. Once those are done, once we find compliance, if it gets past that part, it goes to the hearing examiner. So the hearing examiner is hired by the city to review these kind of preliminary plats and plats. There's normally a land use attorney, as ours currently is. And they use the same criteria we do, but they're a second set of eyes that is a non-biased third party to give confirmation or judgment based on facts only. So a lot of confusion, and you've noticed this if you've been to any of our recent hearings, is people feel like the feelings or their thoughts should come into play. And in order for the city to stay neutral, we can't do that. We can't bring in feelings because no one wants to have a development in their backyard, but everybody wants to be able to develop their property and not be told what they can do, right? So we have this, as a city, we have to go and do what the guidelines say and what laws say that we can do. If someone's mad or angry about it, it's unfortunate. We try to address those, and that's what council addresses with their development code guidelines. You bring those guidelines forward to try to address those concerns. But if someone comes in and says, I don't want this because it's going to ruin my view of the gophers in the backyard. If those are pocket gophers, well, good for you. We can't build on that. But if they're not pocket gophers and they're just moles, someone can build on that. And as council knows and as the city knows, we're very adamant that people's rights as property owners, they can use those rights. If they own property, they should be able to develop that property within regulations.
What if there's too much traffic? They think there's gonna be a lot of traffic impacts.
Yeah, so anytime there's traffic impacts, they have to do a traffic study. Anytime a developer comes in, they have to prove through engineering, traffic study engineers, that is not impacting or lowering the rating of that road. So anytime a development comes in, if someone thinks, well, there's already so much traffic on this road, why is it so bad? They went through a study, they went through engineers, we vetted that study, we took that to our engineers to review and say, yes, they're correct. So every now and then you will get it doesn't happen often, but you'll get a traffic engineer that says traffic won't be impacted. We bring it to our traffic engineer and they go, I disagree with you. And then we rebuttal back some facts, and then they would go and try to prove us wrong. If they can't prove us wrong, we'd go with that. Most recently, there was a development that was over by 507 where it connects with Bald Hill Road, and they wanted to put in a restaurant there. Well, the traffic study showed them failing the intersection. They were asked to fix the intersection or do some improvements to the intersection so it wouldn't fail. They didn't want to do that because they thought it would cost too much money, and they didn't decide to develop that project. Those kind of things happen. But a lot of it too is WSDOT has the input on 507 and 510, since those are state highways. We can't supersede WSDOT. So we could say, hey, we want this development here, it works great. WSDOT will say, we don't think it'll work on this and keying into this 507 or 510. So they have to do these improvements. And WSDOT has guiding authority on state routes. So you'll see some of those things where development might come in and we're really trying to push it. We think it's a good idea. WSDOT will have their engineers say, no, we don't think it can go unless it's this, and it might be too expensive for that developer to develop.
Which was also the case for this particular instance.
Yes, which was the case for this, is that, I don't want to name, but the development wanted to come in, a business wanted to come in. WSDOT had some guidance that they wanted them to build a roundabout. That's not very feasible for a business to build a $2 million roundabout. We can't override WSDOT because it's their highway. So that business decided not to pursue that avenue because it was just too expensive for them to build a roundabout to recoup their costs. It's unfortunate. We can't control what WSDOT does. We can control our side streets and back streets. And a lot of times people will say, well, why would we let a development come in all the way up Toma Boulevard? And, we don't, when the traffic engineers do everything, once traffic starts to flow out, they don't do a study at Walmart Boulevard for a development at Tomatera and go, well, this car might drive all the way through town and get to Walmart Boulevard and jam traffic up. Because you can't prove that, right? You're just doing the traffic to that intermediate areas. And that's where we come at. So,
Councilmember Huss?
yeah, you can stop me as I go.
No, as you brought up, development way out and how's it affect?
Mhm.
But in reality, for us, it does affect. I mean, if you put, and I'm just gonna say, let's say Tahoma Terra, somebody, they decide we're gonna put 200 more homes in there and they go, well, it's not really gonna affect Tahoma Terra, it's not gonna affect this intersection. But then if that's as far as you're looking, but you're not looking at this intersection here, and a variety of other ones, how do we get that into play?
Yeah, so-
How do we make sure that those are also looked at so we don't have, yeah, you're right, Tahoma Terra is flowing beautifully, but then everything stops.
Plat process.
Yeah, this is I'll get back to, this is the what ifism, right? Is that we can go as big as you want. We could say, it's just gonna bog down developers who won't be able to develop, right? You can go Tomatera, hey, I think you're gonna put another car on I-5 at Mounts Road. So you need to do a study and tell us how many cars are going to Mounts Road I-5, right? You have to put a scope on it. If you go too big, no one will be able to do that, right? You would not be able to put a study on a car leaving Tomatera going to Walmart Boulevard, because you don't know if that car is turning right to go to Walmart, turning left. So they have to do the intermediate roads. Once it dissipates from there, that's what the study conducts of. They can't go out that far. I mean, if you think of practicality, no one could. We can't, this car is going to go to Seattle, so let's do a study in Seattle about the car that just built a house in Tomatera.
And I understand that. I'm just wondering how big of an area I mean, as you said, you give them boundaries. How big of a boundary are you giving?
So it's wherever the cars start dispersing from. So normally it is at the intersect. So if, imagine Tomatera, the intersection that would pop in is where the development goes directly out, and the intersection where it cuts off to Longmire, the intersection where it cuts off to 510. Those would be the intersections they would study. After that, it's too hard to anticipate where a car might go. They can't do a study for down the street because it wouldn't be practical. It'd be totally what ifisms at that point.
Oh, sorry, I kind of, was on a side road. It wasn't necessarily meant for, like, when I said traffic impact, it's the legalities of it.
Yes.
Cody's explaining.
And that's what I'm trying to
I went
understand. I'm trying to
down a little bit,
make,
yeah.
no, I'm trying to get it so that those who decide they want to watch this, that they fully understand that, no, you know, it's not to our city limits. You're saying, hey, it's to the next major intersection. And then we assume everything disperses at that point. It's perfect. And it's perfect, even though, and this comes from my engineering background, it's a system. You just added a bunch of stuff to something that may be perfectly balanced. But if that's where you stop and you say, nope, that's fine right there. That's what I'm trying to understand myself.
Yeah. And a lot of what you're asking is, we do a thing called peak trips. So the most trips that will ever come out of that, which you would expect early morning or mid-afternoon when people are coming or leaving, like a development for housing. People are coming or going to work. So that's when they do their studies based on the highest volume time, right? They don't do studies based on if a train gets derailed and everybody's driving down I-5 and now going down Yelm.
I fully understand.
And so that's where their studies come from. And they also they have accountants for different cars. Yelm is all roads lead through Yelm, right? It is truly a statement that we have a population of 10,000, but we have roughly 50,000 people that transit through Yelm every day. 50,000 people don't live in Yelm, so where are they going, right? They're coming from one place going to another. And it's unfair. I mean, I think it's unfair to punish people in Yelm and say you can't develop because people in Olympia use this to transit to Spanaway. And so that's where we get into that connection. We could totally say we're going to shut everybody down and we're not going to let any development happen because people need to transit this road from other towns, and Yelm, you can't grow anymore. So it's hard to do those things, and we do our best with having the traffic studies to the nearby intersections, and even beyond that in some cases, depending on where those intersections lie. But that's the best we can do. And it could always get stricter, but it's hard you don't want to punish Yelm residents for.
And again, this isn't part of the process. I got us off on a tangent. So my bad on that.
We'll back away from traffic. So traffic's a heated debate, so.
Yeah.
Quick question.
Yes.
You brought up the business that wanted to open something over by Ball Hill Road.
Mhm.
So they wanted that business to pay for the roundabout. Business ultimately said no.
Mhm.
So now WASDOT's gonna pay for a roundabout.
No.
No, because they're not.
So what happens, and this is like,
Isn't that intersection?
it is, but there's different roundabout. This one didn't do before you. Yeah, it's a whole nother conversation. I just use I use an example. I probably shouldn't have because it was a real example, but so what happens is if a business fails an intersection or if their traffic volume that they're gonna have at their business. So say I'm gonna pick a business that would never come to Yelm I can't do that.
Yeah,
Say a crazy place came to Yelm that gets, say Wildways wanted to build a theme park, right, in Yelm. They would do a huge study about how much traffic, and they would go, hey, this intersection will fail. Here's the improvements we're gonna do to fix those intersections, so when our building comes in, those intersections won't fail. One, we're gonna put a roundabout here, we'll add 2 lanes here, and we'll add a turn lane over there. Now the intersection, our traffic engineer shows you the intersection will not fail. So we would allow them to build at that point. So that's what WASDOT said. They said, hey, you're failing this intersection, you need to do some improvement. And they said, we want to do this. And they go, that still doesn't fail it. You need to do this. And they said, we don't have the money to do that. So it's just a business for them, profit loss, right? It's take them years to get back that. They didn't do it. Okay.
that roundabout was a different one, though.
Then what you're talking about, yeah.
That's still
But now there's gonna be a roundabout at the same intersection.
Different intersection.
different. Yeah, it was a different one.
Yeah.
The main intersection still going forward.
Correct.
This was intersection near KFC, a proposed roundabout near that area. Right before it, like it didn't make sense.
Yeah, and Mayor DePino is right that when they do that roundabout, it might make businesses allowed to come there because now that roundabout shows the intersection doesn't fail when they build a business there, right? But that roundabout's not there. You can't do what ifs like, hey, in 5 years, the bypass will be done. So we're going to do our traffic model on that and we'll build our business now and destroy the intersection for 5 years, right? So, Councilmember Kaminsky.
When the process goes to the hearing examiner, is that a public process or just private?
That's public. So yeah, the hearing examiner is a public hearing. Anyone in the public can go, and you often will get lots of times where public will go, and it's very useful. Council can attend those. Our whole planning department does. I normally chime in every now and then. It's an open process where they're presented with the facts from the city, and then other parties, developers can present facts, and parties nearby that are invested can present facts. And then once those facts are all obtained, he'll make a decision based on that hearing examiner. So some of the, just recent hearing examiner things, we had like the Crystal Springs development that was coming in. The hearing examiner made a decision on that. The Tomatera back in, several years ago, the hearing examiner made a decision on that. And that's kind of what links them to that water rates, because there's the hearing examiner is very good in pulling in facts and making a judgment based on that versus feelings. And it's really hard for some people to change those two things, right? And feelings it is important to understand where people are coming from and what they're doing, but the hearing examiner's only goal is to listen to facts and make a decision based on those facts.
Starts with the law.
Exactly.
Do they have it at the courthouse?
The hearing examiner used to do hearings in person. We're all on Zoom now, which helps. It helps everyone because people can't always make it to a building and whatnot. So
Thank
it
you.
works out well. Not a problem. So once the hearing examiner makes their decision, they use that same criteria, those same facts to make the decision. Once they've said yes, no on that, then that goes to the next step of the plat process. If he approves it, we ensure that all improvements meet subdivision standards. It meets state and local code for final subdivision, and then it's placed. This is where it comes into play. The state and local code requires us to bring it to council for final approval. So once all of that's done, hearing examiner is done, we've ensured that the subdivision has got their improvements in, they can do all that. It comes to council for final approval. Council's only job at that point, I'm going to tell you what your job is, sorry. Your only mission at that point is if you have a new fact to bring up and say, hey, someone told me this, they didn't get a chance to be heard by the hearing examiner. I think we need to review this. Then you bring it up at that point. If you have no other facts, disapproving that plat would open us for a lawsuit because now it has been.
Or the process.
Or the process, yeah.
The process hasn't followed correctly.
Yeah, it then opens the city for a lawsuit because it's gone through all these phases, all these codes that you set aside. And if you said, hey, no, we're going to disapprove it because I really like my view of the water tower and you're going to ruin my view of the water tower. Those lights are amazing. I hate you for doing that. That is not a fact thing that we need to do. It could open the city for a lawsuit based on they followed all the criteria. Now the council's disapproving it. So I just wanted to make sure. So your only goal at that point is if you have new information to bring, you bring it there, you present it. If you don't have any new information to bring, it's just for public process. It shows people what's going on, even though they've seen it through all this other process. Now it shows the whole city on a consent agenda. Hey, here's the plat that's coming in. I know it's getting approved. It's gone through the process and it's getting approved by council. And the reason why, and I said the state law requires a legislative body to approve all final plats. You are the legislative body. You can designate someone for preliminary plats, and that has been done by a previous council before you. The planning commission does approve preliminaries. So you could take those off the planning commission docket, but they do a really good job of that. So that's something that's been designated to them. So any questions about the plat process. It was kind of a brief overview. I just wanted to go because you're gonna be seeing a lot of plats as soon as water rights go live, and I'll talk briefly about that.
Preliminary ones. What's an example of, is that the initial before?
Before it gets to you. Preliminary is when it's first set in. That staff review, it also has a planning commission review.
Okay, so in other words, it's basically in that, the staff verifying that the codes and everything, the planning commission's looking at it as well.
Correct.
Okay.
And short plats, so there's multiple different kinds of plats. I'm not gonna dive into all of them, but there's multiple different plats. Not all plats go before council.
What's the total number of homes for these plants?
It just depends. They can be anywhere from 136 to 25.
What's your best guess?
For
For how many homes with all of these plants combined, what's that translate to in terms of the number of homes likely to be built?
right now,
No, one home for one home. It's one plat for, I don't think it varies.
No, I understand, a
Yeah.
plat could be one house,
yeah,
but a plat could also be 300 homes.
correct.
Absolutely.
And if you want the current number of homes in queue, I think it's 723, if I'm just guessing off the top of my head.
Yes.
And a half.
It's pretty.
That's what I want.
Just roughly guessing, I'm throwing it out there. It might be more now. That was the last time I checked.
Are there any other questions about the process here?
Any question about plat process?
So you're saying that business on the edge of town that's going in is completely legal to do that? To spend millions of dollars to build a business and put it in there?
Which business on the edge of town are you talking?
The one that everyone's complaining about,
I don't know.
auto business.
Oh, if they're, and that's part of the process is council sets, if council decided they wanted to not let a business come in for whatever reason, the best way to do that is change your guidelines. Say, we don't want any Eiffel Towers in Yelm. We're gonna put it in our guidelines that no one can build an Eiffel Tower. Then someone that owns a property goes, I want to build an Eiffel Tower. And you go, sorry, our guidelines say no Eiffel Towers. That's how council best stops certain things or doesn't allow certain things. And that's what the zoning does a lot of too, is you'll notice in our downtown corridor, we don't have, auto wrecking yards right next to, because council in their infinite wisdom, which is a good thing, decided, hey, let's not put downtown wrecking yards in the middle of the central business district because people probably don't want to eat food and walk outside and see a wrecking yard right there. So those kind of things are how council best guides the staff in making sure that the city grows to the way council sees it. So through zoning guidelines, code development, and we brought it, as you know, we brought a couple of development guidelines to you guys last year and they were approved, some were changed and we did that. And that's the best way to guide us is whatever our goal as staff is to execute your vision, right? We'll guide you as best we can and say, this is what we think we should do, but ultimately it's your decision, right? If you want to see something, we put it in the code and then that thing can be built now, or that thing cannot be built now. That's all up to you and we follow your guidance.
It's just one tool in the council's toolbox. And, but the other one also is the budget process as well. So you can, define as well what you want and what you want to see this shaped out to be. Councilmember Hess.
Yeah, it's only because you brought it up, as it's our responsibility in reference to the codes. And all. How often are those reviewed? I mean, how often do we sit down as a council and look at the whole thing and do a review of the codes to make sure there isn't something there from the 1800s that we're kind of going, yeah, that shouldn't be there anymore.
I hope you do that often.
I'm just
When
asking.
I was on council, I did it once a day, but no, I'm saying you are, Councilor Hess, we constantly review the code. It used to be a once a year thing. We now dive into the code on a daily. If you see something in the code that you go, hey, why don't we allow this? Or why don't we do this? We can 100% go to the code, do a public hearing, bring it to the planning commission vets it, we bring it to you guys. As you know, Public Services Committee, we had talked about some code updates and stuff at our last meeting. And that's that process. If you have something you want to change, that's how we do it. We go in.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
We're constantly in the code. That's our planners who are doing that day in and day out.
Councilmember Kaminsky.
Just an example, the property that the Car Star people owned back there and they were forced to put all their cars in their driveway. Was that a code issue?
Yes, so.
Lot behind there?
Yeah, I don't want to dive into it, but there's two things. There's one called existing non-conforming use, where if a business has been in Yelm for 30 years and we make a new code saying we don't want any banana businesses, and there's a banana shop that's in Yelm. I'm just trying to do a crazy example so that no one could actually say that applies to them. So we say, hey, we don't want any more banana businesses. We can't shut down, or we can't stop a business that's already opened because they're an existing non-conforming use. So they're allowed to be a banana business until they want to go somewhere else or build bigger. So that would be, in the case of this place you're talking about, is they bought a separate lot. They wanted to park cars on there. We don't allow gravel parking lots for storage or parking in central business district. So when they've said that, they bought this lot, we said, hey, you need to upgrade your lot. You need to pave it. And they go, okay, we'll do it. And we said, sweet. And then they didn't do it. And we said, please do it. They still didn't do it. Then we sent them a letter saying, you really need to do it. And they started parking cars there. And then we sent them more letters over the course of 7 months now. We sent them letters saying, you really need to upgrade this or do something, and it hasn't been done. So yes, it goes against the code. We've tried our best to work with them, and we're hopeful that they've got a plan. They do have a plan that they want to do some stuff with that. And it'd be great if they did that, and we'll move forward and help them out with that. So that's our whole goal as a city, is to get people to the right answer and not find them, not give them no's, but help them get to the yes that they need. It's just about working with the city, and we need to know about it too. It's hard for us to do something when we drive by and go. And the good thing I live in town, because I drive by and see stuff all the time, like, hey, what the heck is going on? They didn't say anything. And then I call them up.
They're not the only ones that have done that, so.
They're, yeah.
And if council wants to dive into it more, one-on-one Cody too.
Yeah, so just, yeah, anything we want to work with people, contact city, we'll help you out if we know about it. So.
Anything else before we move on to Sue?
Quick question.
Good.
There was some reference to the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah.
We certainly don't want an Eiffel Tower here. But there's a hint of sprawl here in Yelmshire. And the question is, we have, I believe, a 35-foot height limit right now.
Correct.
Is there any conversation going on about the possibility of extending that up just a little bit so that we can concentrate?
So attend our May 5th study session. You will hear about the new height limit that we're proposing.
Pardon?
Attend our May study session. You will hear about the new height limit we're proposing. So we are headed. We knew you were going to ask that question, Steve, and we got it on the docket for it. Good question.
All right, moving on to summer events, a little more fun.
Going up to 40 stories.
We got a 40-story building coming up, so it's in the process.
From my house.
Just kidding. Moving on though, summer events, splash pad updates, and seasonal employees, some good fun things to talk about. Cody.
Yeah, so mark your calendars, May 28th will be the opening day for the splash pad. So we'll turn on the splash pad on May 28th. That is Memorial Day weekend. That's the first Saturday in May. Cross your fingers for good weather. There's also going to be another event happening that same day. The fitness pad will open. We'll have the grand opening of the fitness pad on May 28th.
Fitness pad. You know the fitness pad. We're talking
Megan Blair will be
about
providing classes that afternoon.
We'll be doing 12-ounce curls.
There you go. So we'll be fencing, and with that, so you'll notice over the next month, there's gonna be a lot of work going on in City Park. We're gonna be fencing off that corner lot, just that corner lot where the fitness pad is, because we're gonna be doing hydro seating, putting a picnic table in there, putting some sidewalks in, doing some landscaping and building the fitness pad over the next month. You'll also notice the parking lot that is currently gravel. We don't allow gravel parking lots, so we'll be paving that parking lot over the course of the next month, so no one can hold that against us. So that should be done. That should be done also by May. It will be done by May 28th. I'm not going to say it should. It will be done. There will also be a new sidewalk installed in City Park, going from the community garden to the left parking lot, or the parking lot over here, the east, something like that. Yeah.
Cody, could you talk about the how it's been budgeted, how it's been paid?
Yeah, I'll go through all that. Yeah, and there will be one more new sidewalk coming in along the thing, along with a couple different that you'll see. There's a lot of stuff going to be happening in the park over the next month and a half. So keep your mind out, pay attention. So how this got budgeted is we have a municipal building fund that had $70,000 budgeted this year for design and upgrades of the park in different ways. Part of that included a veterans memorial. So we asked council the last budget amendment to increase that number to 300,000, and that 300,000 you guys accepted. That pays for the parking lot, the sidewalks, the fitness pad. I'm doing so much with 300,000, it's ridiculous. Pays for a new sidewalk on the parking lot side. It pays for ground landscaping, pays for 5 new picnic tables, 3 new trash cans. It's going to be bonkers awesome. So
Are there any grants or anything that all?
oh yeah, there's a bunch of grants. So we got a $30,000 grant from the National Fitness Campaign. to help build the fitness pad. So kudos to you guys for getting that grant. Awesome. We got, you worked very hard. Thank you for that. Very many nights. And we also some businesses are chipping in money for the fitness pad. So the Yelm Chamber is putting in $5,000 for the fitness pad. We have several businesses. I don't have a comprehensive list, but we will have that comprehensive list for you. We're still getting some of those businesses online. Thank you to Councilmember Roy for helping with that. So there's several businesses also pitching in money for the fitness pad, and that comes with their cool, there's a little spot on the front that has different logos that said all people to help sponsor it. And they'll have their name permanently engraved on the fitness pad on that front half.
If we wanna, is there still?
Yeah, and there's still time. If you want to donate and get your name on there, if you had a business like, I don't know, like a clothing business or something for like Liberty Gear clothing or something, you can pay money and get your name on the fitness pad for eternity. So even if you decided to change your business or go something, your Liberty Gear clothing business would always be on there for eternity.
Random example.
Exactly, like a hardwood store and you really wanted your name out there. Or I don't know, like a barbecue or insurance, or maybe a real estate agent. You can have your name on there forever. Just get with Lynn after this and she'll hook you up. Not the name does apply to you. Or maybe you like have an auto, thing that goes around and you do car shows for people and stuff.
All right, reel it back a little
I
bit.
think I got everybody. Or maybe you have a
Alright.
trucking business. You drive trucks for-
Seasonal employees?
Seasonal Ploys, so we had 3 new seasonals that started this week. Well, they started on Friday of last week. Shauna, Jordan, and Tegan. They all started, so they are out and about. So if you see them, you'll see 3 new faces out there. There are seasonal employees. They're 5-month employees. Tayden, sorry, it's Tayden, not Tegan. Tayden will be running the splash pad and the community center. That's what we brought him on for. Shauna is bouncing around for different parks, doing some of the streets. And Jordan will be at Longmire Park helping with all the baseball and football stuff going on in soccer. So awesome. It's very cool to have them on board. We're excited. They're great employees, so it should be good to go. And then the other thing is the summer events in the park. There is so many summer events, I can't name them all for you.
Two of the biggest ones.
2 of the biggest ones I would say are the barbecue rally and Prairie Days is coming back. So Prairie Days come back in force with a parade and everything. You'll have more on that later.
Possible carnival? What?
Possible carnival, possible wheels. It'd be crazy. Maybe
Bathrooms are open, right?
what's that?
The bathrooms are open?
The bathrooms are open, so despite popular comment, bathrooms are open, someone is unlocking them. They do require you to give a little shoulder action to them. So don't be afraid to hit them a little hard, the first ones. None of them have been vandalized yet. They've been open for about just over a month or just under a month. So just, if you can't get into them, feel free to call our Public Works line and we will get them open for you, but they're open. They are open. I check every week. Every weekend I'm out there because I have nothing better to do than go check bathrooms. So feel free, if you can't get in the bathroom, to let me know and I will personally come out there and unlock it for you. But they are unlocked, all bathrooms.
Any questions? Councilmember Roy.
Hello, thank you. You guys know that I represent the council on STEADY, South Thurston Economic Development Initiative. And at our last STEADY meeting, there was a little bit of concern over an event that was in Rainier and was moving to Yelm. And I was hoping that we could get a little, maybe some background on that, because the story that I got was that we ripped it from their hands.
All right, well, I'll mention a little bit about it. It's the Viking Festival, I'm assuming. They approached us asking if we had any spaces available park-wise that would accommodate them. They felt that they were outgrowing their current location. And a lot of the folks that put it on are from Yelm and they wanted to bring it to Yelm. And so, I didn't, it's not like I try to steal them away or anything. This is on them that they wanted. And if we can accommodate them, it's a cool little event. They're gonna do it over in Cochrane Park. It's gonna be all forested and like you're back in the day in the medieval times, or not medieval times, I'm sorry, the Viking times. Yeah, Viking times. I could have coincided a little bit, but anyway, that's about where we're at. So they just had a meeting and it sounds like they're moving forward with it though.
Thank you.
Is there anything you want to add, Cody, to
I
it?
think that covered it, unless there was any other questions about Viking festivals. So they're very fond of reclaimed water, I heard, so that's what they're. So that, I think that's everything for summer events. There's a bunch of summer events, like we can't, I don't wanna say any one is more important than the other. So if you have a chance, from literally May 28th till, I think, the end of August, there's an event every weekend in the park. It's something going on from some group or doing something awesome. So if you have a chance, just swing by the park at that time.
May 21st, from May 21st on.
Yeah, May 21st.
Pretty City Day.
Oh, Pretty City Days in the park. I mean, and I know there's an event this weekend. There's an Easter event this weekend.
This weekend.
At the park, if you have kiddos, go out and do the Eastern event. If you don't have kiddos and you just want to go Easter, go out there.
Do it as an adult.
Yeah, do it as an adult. Take a picture with the Easter bunny, chicken, and some Easter or something else too. There's a chicken bunny and something else. A duck, Easter duck.
Easter duck.
So, yeah.
How many eggs are gonna be out there?
How many eggs are, I don't know.
I heard.
That was
30,000.
35,000.
I heard 3.
35,000 eggs. The whole
The whole
bar is gonna be totally covered with eggs.
Yeah, please find them because they smell really bad if you don't find them. It's been, yeah, whew, it's bad, so. Yeah, all hard boiled. So yeah, if there's events in the park, just come out, you'll see an event happening. The parking lot will be a huge improvement because we're gonna go from, I think we can fit about 20 cars there now. It'll be able to fit 42. Wow. 42 parking spots in there with handicap accessible parking. It'll be amazing for anyone. It's just gonna be so much better in parking wise. So we're super excited about everything.
Parking's been a priority too for us, and we're looking at other avenues as well, and we'll talk more about council retreat, which we could be talking about right now if there's any other questions. Any other questions for Cody regarding any of these summer events? All right, thank you so much. Alrighty, moving right along. We got our council retreat discussion. So I'm just gonna briefly go over what the, thanks for coming out. I'm gonna briefly go over the agenda, and if there's anything that council wants to discuss after that, more than welcome, but so anyway, starting on Friday, April 22nd at 10 a.m., the department managers, department heads will be arriving 5 to noon, be team building at noon to 1 p.m. There'll be some activity that they'll be doing, team building type stuff. 1 to 1:45, we'll have lunch. 1:45 to 3 p.m. Big picture discussion by departments. Just talking about big picture items for the city of Yelm and long-term discussions as well. And then 3 o'clock, council should be arriving. 3 to 4 o'clock. Council will have a different presentations from each department head. They'll be about 10-15 minutes each. You'll have also that much, you have a lot of time to ask questions. We won't, cut you off or anything. You just want to ask, please feel free. Also, if there's any particular questions you want answered, now's the time to send those in to myself or any of the department heads. And we'll make sure that we discuss and have that brought up. We'll also, at 4 o'clock, move into a public safety presentation. Administrative services director. I apologize. Chief, do you want to talk more about the 3 to 4 o'clock regarding the council presentations? What that was more about?
Yeah, 3 to 4 is council's going to be arriving. The department heads, department managers that are there, they're going to be going over the presentations prior to your arrival. So
Getting it ready.
yeah, so we're going to go through them, make sure they're consistent. We can, make sure there's no mistakes. It's, the presentations are all looking good so that when you get there, they're ready to go. We'll line them up and shoot them up to you.
My apologies. That was more planning. Thank you, Chief, for the clarification.
Come on here.
No, I know. I appreciate it. That's why. But at 4 to 6 is when we'll do the actual presentations. Public safety, administrative services director, and the executive department. And again, if you need something, just let us know. We'll get it taken care of. We'll get it answered for you. Be prepared for it. At that point, right after that, 6 o'clock to 7 p.m., council will have time to check into the hotel and settle in. 7 o'clock back at the act, and then we'll send this out to you. So if you don't want to take notes on it, we'll send out the actual agenda to you. I probably should have told you that right after you started writing.
I was gonna bring this whole piece of paper to see where I was supposed to
Oh,
go.
it's good though. And it's, if you take notes, though, you usually memorize it a little bit easier that way. So you'll know. You'll be on top. You'll be ahead of the game. Anyway, 6 to 7, the council check-in. We'll do the hotel, settle in, blah, blah, blah. 7 o'clock to 10:30 from that stretch. We're gonna have dinner. We're gonna have public services presentation. We'll have finance presentation, a beautification grant program discussion, Discussion regarding study sessions and committees, how those are going, what you want them to look like, as well as council discussion on different priorities that y'all have. Things like this pretty city, how that went, or, yeah, that all already occurred at that point, yeah. Things like that, other council initiatives that you have, whatever you want to discuss. And if you want to let us know ahead of time, have us prepare more for it, that'd be helpful. If you don't, you just want to do it on the fly down there, that's fine too. Then about 10:30, 11 o'clock, we'll wrap up for that night. You can do your own thing from that time on. Yeah, 7 o'clock, this was the chief's idea to do it 7 a.m. It's a little bit early, but
7 a.m. breakfast.
7 a.m. breakfast.
Breakfast at 7, that's like brunch.
I can get you earlier if you want, Josh.
Oh, slow your roll, Josh.
Cooking, so
I'll talk
continental.
about
Let's maybe 7:30, we'll do breakfast, wake up. But from 8 to 11:30, we're gonna do some council team building activities and also discuss further on council goals and discussions. We'll have that little time also to discuss those, anything further. And then 11:30 noon, just wrap up, clean up. That's it. So if there's any questions on the schedule, feel free to ask now, discuss. Councilmember
Is there
Kaminsky,
gonna be a facilitator or team building, or are you guys doing it yourself?
we're doing it in-house. Yeah,
And you mentioned the hotel, I thought we were staying at a house.
the actual,
Where the meetings will be.
yeah, is at a house, yeah,
Okay.
rather than rent out the hotel of the,
And so we get dinner
Yeah.
at like 7:30 PM.
dinner is 7 p.m. Is that a little bit
7.
late? A little bit late for
Would
you?
you like it earlier?
Or too early for breakfast. No, just planning ahead so I can make sure I'm well fed.
Yeah.
When I get
Fair
there,
enough.
when I get
Fair
there.
enough.
We wait for second dinner at 7.
Yeah, there won't be snacks, thank you. We'll have trail mix, we'll have some cooking snacks for you. Let us know if you have any allergies, food allergies, make sure we don't cook something. You don't have to
If
tell
you
us
do that
why.
blind falling, I'm not standing behind Joe here.
Whoa, I got you, Joe.
I'll be like, oh. Hello, Joe.
Anything else?
If I could just add real quick,
Yeah.
all the hotel reservations have been made, so I'll send out information to all of you, and make sure you have
Thank you, Kim.
all of that ahead of time.
It's the most luxurious hotel that Westport has to offer. So just look forward to that.
I haven't been to that one yet.
I think it's a 5-star hotel. 4 yeah. You don't mind.
No.
Councilor Crossman.
I just want to highlight the 2 things I would like to make sure we discuss is the EDC and the LID.
Okay. Yes, and Kathy's taking note, but I will too, just in case. Yeah, we'll absolutely discuss it. We'll have something prepared for it. I think that was something that we were wanting to do anyway, so, but we'll get on there. Make sure. Any other suggestions, comments, questions, concerns? Councilmember Craig?
Thank you. I just want to acknowledge that George Sharp is here this evening from the Thurston Economic Development Council, and he has agreed to assist us with this creative district business, and he has a lot of experience with that. So thanks, George, for being here.
Absolutely, and yeah, thank you, George, for being here. If you don't know, George Sharp is with the EDC, specifically with Steady though, and runs that as well. It's been a big advocate for South County, and so thank you for being here, George. Anything else regarding the council retreat?
When you said EDC, did you mean the Innovative Center?
Yes, whatever the
Oh,
initials are.
oh, I got it.
I see, there you go.
Not even actual,
My acronyms
we'll be
are.
discussing both, but okay. We'll be discussing both. Anything else? All right, well, if you think of something, shoot us an email. We'll get it on the agenda. We'll discuss it, be prepared for it. Now, we will be going into executive session to discuss negotiations with ASME for 15 minutes per RCW 42.30.140, 4A and 4B. We will start and figure, let's see what time it is. It's 7:13, so we'll start right here at 7:13, be back in 15 minutes. We'll retire to the, how do I say retire? We will go back to the conference room over there.
I don't know about you, but I'm retiring.
Unmute us. All right, we're back in session and all we have left is the mayor's report and council member initiatives. So for the mayor's report, been discussing further with the YMCA. We're now moving forward with stakeholder groups. And so what this means is we're meeting with, let's say, influential folks in the community that might have good networking skills and might know a lot of other people and, to be blunt, know some wealthy folks. And that will help drive our fundraising efforts. And that's, so when we have a feasibility study, and we will be getting from feasibility from the last time as well. We're checking in that from the last study. The YMCA is in control of that, or they still have that study, I believe. And we'll get that to council if one council member has already asked for it, so we'll provide that. And so, yeah, it's moving forward well. I don't want to get, hopes up or anything, but it's moving forward pretty well. After we get that kind of feasibility study, which Yelm is like, we'll have a bigger council discussion, but Yelm is likely to include $10,000. We're gonna look for 2 other partners. I don't want to mention just out loud just yet because they haven't confirmed, but it looks like there's gonna be partnerships where other folks are gonna be putting money into this as well, to just do the feasibility study regarding can we raise the money. And when I say raise the money, it's gonna be about $20 million for YMCA to be built here. It's gonna take between 5 and 10 acres of land at least. And so it's a big project, but it's sounding really good. And I don't want to be too optimistic, but it's coming along. So anytime I get an update, I'll make sure council's informed, knows what's going on. There will be a time when council will need to have an actual discussion for support of this project. We're not there yet, but it should be before the end of the year though. We're start talking further. And we'll talk further too, Councilor Treat as well, but Councilmember Crossman.
Do you have a dream location? If you could wave a magic wand, it would be right in this area.
I think the Yelm Medical Plaza area, that's a good location. And I want to stress it.
With this,
It's
if you had a
really
magic
early in
wand,
these
I
talks.
would wave a clue.
It's really early in these talks, and who knows, maybe the 450 or the 650 acres, maybe there's a lot of different possibilities, and we're exploring all of them, and not just city-owned properties, but other entities' properties as well. Exploring different partnerships can be possible for that. Anything else on why? Want to know anything more? Cool. The other thing I had was that we hired a communications recreation coordinator. We had about 14,
Yeah, I think so.
or 14 applicants for it. So it was a really good turnout. A lot of good applicants, a lot of qualified folks. We settled on an employee who actually was from the city of Lacey. Prior to that, she was from city of Tacoma, a wealth of experience, and she will start here
April 18th.
April 18th. And so that'll help us fill a gap or a void that we've had for a little while now, at least December, if not longer, where folks were trying to do more with less. And so we didn't have a communications person. We didn't have a coordinator for all these activities that, for the renting out the community center. We were just, making it work, but it's going to be making sure that we're a little more efficient now. So that's all I've got with that. We'll start with Councilmember Kaminsky and go down this way.
I don't think I attended any meetings, but I'm looking forward to working with George and Steve and contributing any way I can on the Arts Commission. I think it's a large venture, but I think it'd be totally worth it. It incorporates amazing things. So that'll be next week. I look forward to join them.
Thank you, Councilmember Kaminsky. Councilmember Roy.
Same, I'm looking forward to seeing your stakeholder list and seeing if there's a way that I can help plug the right people into the right places.
Councilmember Hess.
Nothing to report.
Councilmember Smith.
This is initiatives, right? No initiatives right now. Thank you.
Councilmember Crossman.
No.
Any news on the Pretty City?
Pretty City is lining up for May 21st. Hope everybody gets together, gets out there, create a team. and clean up the city. We have flyers. So if you like a flyer, come see me or Lynn.
I have them right here.
And it's a good example of a good council member initiative. Anything else, Crossman, or Councilmember Crossman?
Hey, call me wherever you want. I'll be late for dinner, you know?
Fair enough. All right, moving on, Councilmember Richardson.
Not too much. Just want to say thank you, Cody, for making things interesting and actually being good at explaining things to us with bananas and other things.
Or a teacher. Yeah, true. Anything else? Councilmember Blair then?
Not anything specific initiative yet. Councilmember Hess brought it up about the code, different
Overviews.
stuff that's in the municipal code. I know you and I had talked about it years past. Just never got the ball rolling. I think there's a lot in our municipal code that we could repeal and no one would ever even realize we did it. Because there's that much just nonsense, unrelated stuff in there. I've got a whole binder list of stuff that I've looked over in the last couple of years, and I'm gonna start bringing some of those forward.
You have a physical binder of all these?
Yeah. I started, when I first ran, I started going through them all.
Oh, man. All right, I'm looking forward to seeing this binder.
Thick of stuff that I've written down that
Fair enough.
not everyone may agree with me, but I think it just doesn't need to be there.
Yeah. Bring it up. We'll review
But
it.
specifically, I'm curious, what's going on with the chain link fence stuff, since it got brushed under the rug because we didn't like their version of it.
Fair enough. Cody, do you have any updates on it?
Yeah, so as council knows, we came with, we tried to loosen up the chain link fence policy. Council did not approve that code update. They wanted to see it to have no policy at all on chain link fences, just let chain link fences go wherever it needed to be. So we went back and are in reviews of that section now. We went to the planning commission to try to get advice on what they would do. So they're reviewing that certain section of the code because they thought they recommended a good proposal, so they have to go back and kind of look at what their idea of that review is. So our next our next study session, we'll be going through code updates. Chain link fences are on there. And you'll see some modifications, but go ahead.
Can you bring it up to them? Like, and I offered it out as the compromise in certain areas where they're wanting that. In that spot, say, hey, if you don't want to do the landscape and stuff, you need to have the final coded ones.
Yeah, and you'll be seeing in our proposal, we have quite a few. We got rid of, so.
I remember right, the big concern is along
Yes.
510.
CBD, Central Business District, yeah. And so you're gonna see, there's a lot of things that we're talking about that are gonna be like getting rid of landscape barriers in Central Business District, so a building could be up to the road, right? Allowing multi-use. And so there's a lot of code changes that I think will do what you want it to do, combined with that chain link fence change. So you'll see those, we'll bring those, we brought on Public Services Committee, we talked about quite a few of them. But we're bringing a big comprehensive list to you guys in May, and that'll be a good time for, hey, we can throw that on the next section. There's a lot of, I don't want to call them antiquated, but like you said, there's a lot of older policies that were inputted that we've gone through and reviewed and said, we probably don't need these, or they can be adjusted to fit modern terms, right? People aren't using telegraph lines anymore. We don't need substandards for telegraphs. So those kind of things can be pulled out of the code. And we're updating those. You'll see those on the May study session. So that gives you the answer you want.
Yeah, I'm glad the conversation kept going. I had a feeling it was just killed at that point. Didn't go forward.
Yeah, no, I remember.
Correct.
I know there was a point made that those four things couldn't be separated at that point, but then magically the next meeting they were, so.
That was the old way of doing things. We kept development codes as one giant update all at once. You'll be seeing development codes individually now. So.
Can you, as I thought about, do you guys just look for this one option? Do you say, hey, we have these two options, which way do you want to go?
So a lot of times,
Like if there's certain things that like, well, we can do this, or we can do that. And so, or you just going to say, we're just going to pick one and present one.
so a lot of times we do give options to planning commission or it's driven by a council. So a lot of times council will come to us, councilor might say, hey, I really want to see building height increased, right? And so we'll take that to planning commission, go, we want building heights increased, here's what we think would be applicable, we'll go to 45 feet for building height, right? That's 4 stories roughly. So that is kind of how it's driven. And then we look at antiquated things, so like language updates, things that don't apply anymore, that's what we do. We won't do any development changes that aren't driven by either planning commission or council. So if Councilmember Blair says, hey, I think all of council wants chain link fences, I think everybody should have a chain link fence and a chicken in every pot, right? We can go to the code update and we'll drive that because we're driven by council, right? It's not, planning does not drive the changes. Obviously, we have a viewpoint, we think things should be that way, but our goal is to implement what the council sees fit. You know, if you guys want whatever, we put that in the code. That's our goal. Our goal isn't to do what we want to do, it's what you want us to do. So you just need to, like, that's a perfect example. So chain link fences, I will make sure that's on there because I know it's a big driving point.
It's process is what I'm curious about here. When you're making a change, is there any opportunity of a public hearing, getting the public involved, or is it they have to pay attention to what's going on in the city council meeting, and if nobody ever says anything, it's what 7 people decided that if it's a unanimous thing, it's 7 people decide for a whole community.
Yeah, so
You're elected for too.
No, I'm just wondering, because
you actually attended the most recent public hearing of the planning commission, which was the development code. So anytime development guidelines go in front of planning commission, it is a public hearing. So we have to put posters, we have to put announcements. We have ones in there's several places in the city, 5 places in the city. We put them up. We posted on our Facebook page that, hey, attend this planning commission to talk about these development guidelines. So yes, it is a public hearing.
I just want to make sure for the
100%.
okay.
Yeah, 100% public hearing.
Councilmember Blair.
Just to to build off of that, every one of these meetings is open. And I was on the same page as you, but what I've learned over the last 2 years is the vast majority of people, they voted us in because they just don't care.
No.
Care.
No.
But not enough.
Want you to make that.
It's not that they don't care, it's they put us here to make those decisions because they don't want to take the time to come out to all these things. Now, does that mean we're hiding anything from anyone? Absolutely not. All of these meetings, the dates, the times, what's happening at them, anyone can figure out. Anyone can look ahead, and especially if it's something that they're interested in, come down and yell at us if you don't like what we're doing.
Or have the time for it. I mean, that's the real issue.
No, I'm just wanting to make sure. I mean, this is a forum to inform people. Hopefully they all of a sudden hear, because the way that the conversation was going was, if somebody was paying attention to this meeting, it's all of a sudden be 7 members, one of the 7 members says, hey, I don't want anything above a 2-story building in this community. Planning goes and goes, yeah, okay, we can make that happen, comes here, 7 people vote on it, and it passes 4-3.
Discuss it though.
Right, no, but I'm just saying that if somebody all of a sudden how are our residents all of a sudden finding out what's going on? Because yes, you're right. You can say that people don't care, but I'm going to tell you, I'm running into people who do care. They're not finding out about it until they're about to go over that last yard into the touchdown, and it's the goal line defense at that point, and they didn't get a chance to prepare for it during the whole time that was moving forward. And so all I want to do, all I'm asking is for those who are watching, hey, here it is, and you say, hey, we posted in 5 spots. Okay, that's nice. We put it on the Facebook page. How many people are on Facebook? Millions around the world within Yelm. How many of the residents? Can we say 10,000? Everybody in Yelm is on Facebook.
I mean, there's different groups,
Right, no.
yeah, they have tens of thousands of people in it, so.
But that's the thing, is that I want to make sure that we are reaching our residents and that we're not playing the game of, and yes, it is a game. Oh, hey, I have to put a legal notice in the local paper. Oh, hold it here. Rainier has a local paper. Not many people of Yelm really read the local paper, but it fits the legality of the law. Not the intent of the law, which is to notify everybody what's going on.
The question is, what do you
No,
suggest?
Well, one, I'm happy to hear we're getting a communications person who hopefully will find out the best way. We have a local paper that hopefully it's putting in a section that says, not only for Yelm, but all the communities that it covers. On top of that, within Yelm, we have our water bill. Why are we not putting out an extra sheet of paper It doesn't have to be fine details, but tells all the meetings that are about to happen, because every resident of Yelm receives a water bill.
Well, I don't.
Paper.
It's
I don't.
online and it's automated, so
Yeah.
I haven't seen a water bill in.
I haven't in years. The thing is though, people don't, I understand what you're saying. My take on that is, because I've been a citizen here for many, many years, is that all of a sudden something will come to the surface and they get up in arms and then they're like, well, how did I not know about this? Well, they could have known. All they have to do is do the research.
And that's all I'm, right. You have to do the research. I'm just saying that I'm just hoping that we're maintaining the intent of notifying our residents. In other words, that we are not putting 5 posters out that say, yep, they're there, and yeah, it's there, but you really got to know what you're looking for. And that we don't have people that are in the know, that are a small minority, i.e. all of a sudden 200 people on a Facebook group that is, yes, it's public, but you have to join it and you have to be willing to follow it to maintain, and all of a sudden 200 people are up in arms about something and it makes a decision for 10,000 people. Is that fair?
Absolutely. This is a Republic democratic,
Agreed.
Republic democracy.
Representatives, so I think it's part of that's up to us to get the word out as well, as we're representatives of the residents of Yelm. So it's up to us as, just as much as the city itself, is also up to us as the residents, representatives of the residents, to get that word out to them as well, and our channels that we have to do that.
Yeah, and not just that, I mean, we do have like about 7 flyers that we usually put up, but besides that though, we, that didn't hit at all, did it? It was too late. Anyway, you make a good point though, if communication wise, if we can do more, we'll do more. With our person coming on here, next couple of weeks, we'll have them look at other alternative methods to do better outreach, which it'll help with for sure. Whether it's Facebook, social media, whether it's putting posters up, whether it's newspaper or whatever. We're always open to exploring more. I think Lynn had a question, then Terry.
I just think we're getting a little in the weeds on where our job as counselors is in getting information and disseminating it. We do have a responsibility to let the people know what's happening. They have a responsibility to read it.
Yes.
So, you got to meet us where we're going, because we're trying.
Yeah.
You got to come out of your home.
Yeah.
Do that too.
Sorry, Councilmember Kaminsky. Do you want to?
I agree. No, I agree. But I don't think we could be more transparent than we are. People whine about being transparent. We are 100%.
There's always room for improvement.
Yes, but
yeah.
my question was,
Yeah.
why don't we make better use of the old digital board at the old city hall and say, planning commission, come to blah, 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 or for anything that we want people, for all the events, all the parks, all the commissions, like.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Totally use that. I don't think there's anything on it.
We are, no, there's not right now, but we're also gonna get that person to, that communications person to actually utilize it. Right now, we don't have that person to do it, so we don't have anyone necessarily doing it. We did it for a quick minute. Our IT folks were the ones that were doing it. We're paying them well to do IT stuff rather than communication stuff, so we're trying not
How does
to,
that work? You just type that in and it puts the message out there?
something like that, yeah.
Really easy?
It's fairly easy, but you have to keep, yeah. And you have to be you have to keep it updated and all that. It's not necessarily doing it the first time. We can.
But that's a great way. People, how many cars drive by, they could see, read the
About
report
50,000.
about what important meeting is going on that day or this week. So.
Yeah, absolutely. We will look further into it, and if we want to have this discussion more on democracy and how we represent folks and all that, we can do that further at the council retreat. And Kathy would like to add one more thing, absolutely.
Thank you. The one item that wasn't mentioned here is we do always post these on our website also. So anybody can access our website. You don't have to, it's not a social media site, but we do post our public hearings and all of our meetings. We have a monthly calendar, our monthly meeting schedule going up, and then there's a calendar on there. They're on there too. So.
Yeah, and to Kathy's credit here as the city clerk, she's actually been pushing for that very thing to get that information out even further to the public. So thank you, Kathy, on that. It's not something, there's a lot of things that happen at City Hall that I should be better at explaining every little detail to, but sometimes there's just so much going on here. I don't talk and highlight some of the good work that our employees are doing currently. And she does a great job of currently putting it out on the different media outlets and making people aware of our meetings and all that. And she's been pushing to increase that. So got a good advocate in City Clerk Kathy, and also with our new communications person, we will be pushing that out even further. So anything else on that? Nope. Councilmember Blair, do you want to add anything else to your long initiative? All right. With that, let's adjourn this. I don't think we have to.
No, we're done.
Bam.